This is it, folks. We are starting to see the tea leaves all fall and crumble to the ground, because ever since the Vancouver Canucks traded away JT Miller to the New York Rangers, ever since he had a game yesterday where he looked like he had a step, where he looked like he was more engaged in one game, maybe even one opening shift, than he had been for most of the Vancouver Canucks season. Now that he's gone, we are starting to see more insider information leak and get said about what really went down behind the scenes. And I was actually having a conversation with some of my buddies here in Vancouver. We were talking about, like, oh yeah, now that Miller is out, now that they traded him, there's going to be more conversation about what happened. And I was like, yeah, my friends were excited. I am excited. Because I'm not going to lie, I profit quite heavily from this stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, Lego, why are you contributing to the big toxic media here that's going out there and ruining these players' lives? Hey man, look, it's not my fault that I live in Vancouver, that I live in a city where hockey talk is so rampant and so dominant that any small story is a really big deal because it's in Vancouver. Look, man, I make videos about this stuff. They get a lot of views. People go out there and talk about this stuff. I talk about it because people are talking about it, because people are interested in learning about what happened. And that's exactly what we have here. Elliotte Friedman, in yesterday's Saturday headlines on Sportsnet's video broadcast, ended up talking more about the rift between ELIAS Pettersson and JT Miller, giving some extra information as to what apparently went down. Now, the last time we had spoken about the rift in a big capacity, going over something that actually happened behind the scenes, it was in the Brad Richardson video, where Richardson spoke out on a podcast about what he had seen in the Vancouver Canucks locker room between Pettersson and between Miller. He said on the podcast, yeah, I told JT Miller, you gotta back off on this guy. You're just gonna lose him if you keep on egging him on and egging him on. And that is, unfortunately, seemed to have been what happened after Brad Richardson left and as the Canucks continued throughout their next few years. Now, let's go over onto a comment made by Friedman on the Saturday Headlines segment of the show. I'll leave a link in the description to this Canucks Daily article, which transcribes the comments made by Friedman. I heard that earlier in the year, the Canucks went on an East Coast swing and it included going through Florida, said Friedman. I think at one point there, a small group of players got together and asked, can you guys solve this? Obviously, it stayed rocky. Now, when you think about Florida, okay, earlier in this season, Canucks went on an East Coast swing. When was the last time the Vancouver Canucks were in Florida? Well, I gotcha, fam. All you gotta do is head over to the Canucks website and take a look at the games they've played. They were last in Florida in October. October 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, they were in their eastern swing, which ran through Tampa Bay, Florida, Philadelphia, Chicago, before the Canucks returned home against Pittsburgh. Now, oddly enough, they ended up winning against the Florida Panthers in overtime. That was a pretty good game, but they did lose 4-1 against Tampa 2 nights before. At this point in the season, they had only played 3 games. They lost in the 6-5 comeback loss against Calgary, they lost in the 3-2 shootout loss against Philadelphia, and then they lost 4-1 against Tampa. They had started the season out 0-1-2. So, if Friedman's timeline is accurate here, it seems like around this time, maybe around before the Florida Panthers game where the Canucks got their first win of the season, around that time, a group of players in the Canucks locker room gathered up the guys and they said, hey, Miller, hey, Petey, can you guys fix whatever it is that you got going on? And the way Friedman phrases it, obviously it stayed rocky. And it gets a little bit worse when you look at some of the other dates involved too. This is a tweet made by Josephine. The Florida game was on October 17th. The Elliotte Friedman report that the Canucks management asked Miller to quote-unquote toughen Petey up was on October 29th. JT was benched in Nashville November 17th, and JT's leave of absence announced November 18th. JT then returned December 12th. And while we knew already, based off of some of the extra information from Bruce Boudreau and from Brad Richardson and other parties, that this issue was a longer-term issue between ELIAS Pettersson and JT Miller, seeing the dates laid out like this really gets you thinking like, wow, they dragged this process out for a while. And Patrick Allvin spoke yesterday in a 17-minute post-flight press conference with the media about how already, months ago, the Vancouver Canucks had decided that JT Miller's departure from the team was probably most appropriate for him as a player, for him as a human being, health-wise. I did find it interesting how often Alvin mentioned, oh, it's better for JT's health. This is the right move for JT's health. Like, there was that word being tossed out there, health. And I was like, maybe there is some extra stuff here. Like, obviously, I don't want to speculate on anything in particular, but, like, I'm not going to go say, oh, yeah, it's because of this. But I do wonder, like, if it's something like JT is super hard on himself, and he is also hard on Elias Pettersson, with the reports already coming out that Miller was one of the people tasked with going after Pettersson a little bit more to try to get him to be better. With that in mind, I do kind of wonder, like, Miller is a top dog in the Vancouver Canucks locker room. We know that, or he was. Even Tyler Myers said that he has never seen anybody hold as much locker room weight as JT Miller with the Vancouver Canucks. Myers was seemed like he was kind of devastated with the trade to see Miller leave, but because Miller is such an important figure in the Canucks locker room, because he's the second top forward, if not the top forward most nights, I do kind of wonder if that role, that responsibility, that spot that he has in the hierarchy of the team put him in a spot where he was a little bit more demanding than he normally would have been otherwise. Like, okay, Elias Pettersson is the other top guy, and he's not performing to his expectations. He didn't show up to camp in shape, whatever. Like, people are talking about extra tidbits of information here. But with that status of being a top dog on the team and the other top dog isn't really doing well, and you guys aren't really buddies already to begin with, I do kind of wonder if that sort of dynamic led to Miller being a lot more of an overbearing personality in this situation. And then I'm thinking about it because if he goes over to New York, guess what? There are like 3 other guys that you can debate are higher tier top dog forwards on that New York team compared to Miller. Panarin is a definite yes. Okay, great. But you also have Mika Zibanejad in there, and you also have Chris Kreider, who's a 50-goal scorer. I know Zibanejad and Kreider have definitely not been as good this season, but you could say the same thing about JT and Petey. Not to mention Adam Fox on the blue line, who is arguably in the same tier as Quinn Hughes. I'm going to say that Quinn is just a bit higher, but still, Igor Shesterkin in net. He's better than Demko. There are guys in that Rangers locker room that are top dogs in their own right, and JT entering this new hierarchy of team dynamics might not automatically be thrusted to the very top. And so I wonder if him not being that top dog, if he is not in a top authoritative position, if that allows him to just breathe a little bit more, if that gives him more room to just play his own game and not get too caught up in his own teammates' doings and getting upset at guys and yelling at guys. I mean, we had seen the video yesterday of the Good Riddance, Time of Your Life Green Day thing, where JT Miller was like swearing and getting really pissed off and yelling at Luke Shen. And, you know, we already heard the reports about him yelling at Petey, calling him a baby. And back in October, this was already a big thing. And it turns out back in October, in the Florida stint, like the 3rd, 4th game of the year, there were already talks within the team. Hey, can you guys fix this? Can you guys stop beefing? Like, of course, I'm paraphrasing the ideas, not putting words in anybody's mouths. But I did find it interesting that Elliotte Friedman dropped this tidbit of information on yesterday's Saturday headlines, because it seems like, just based off of everything that's gone down with this Vancouver organization, we are going to see more of these little scoops being penciled in there over the next few weeks here on the radio by different insiders on national media, maybe even in local media. I feel like our local media is so, I don't know what the word is, let's just say they grip really hard to these situations that maybe there are already enough stories exacerbated out there in the Vancouver beat, but at the end of the day, there always could be more, so I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the apparent timeline as to what happened with this team and how apparently back in Florida, in October, Canucks players were already telling Pettersson and Miller, hey, you guys gotta stop. Like, can you do this? Can you guys fix this? Can you guys work it out? Didn't happen. So, thanks, Friedman, for the scoop. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll leave a link in the description to the ExpressVPN affiliate page. Go out there and use Express for some free months, savings, and to help out the channel as well. The video segment on sportsnet.ca and the article that we read transcribing the Friedman quotes are going to be in the description too. I hope you enjoyed this video. And Bye.